For 112 years, there's been an unwritten rule in American politics. Through the Great Depression, 2 world wars, the 2008 financial crisis, no president has ever fired a Federal Reserve governor. Until now. On August 25, 2025, Donald Trump posted a letter on Truth Social. You are hereby removed. The target? Lisa Cook, a sitting Fed governor. The charge? Mortgage fraud. The real goal? Something far bigger. Here's the twist. The evidence against her is falling apart. Bank documents tell a completely different story. And now, 593 economists, including 3 former Fed chairs and 5 former Treasury secretaries, are sounding the alarm. This isn't just about one woman's job. This is about whether the President of the United States can control your mortgage rates, your car payments, and the entire American economy. The Supreme Court just heard the case. And what happened in that courtroom? Even Trump's own appointees turned on him. Let's break it down. The person who sets your interest rates cheated on her interest rates? That was the headline Trump wanted. And honestly, it's a killer soundbite. Here's what the administration claimed. Lisa Cook bought 2 houses in 2021, one in Michigan, one in Georgia. She allegedly told both banks each property was her primary residence. Why does that matter? Primary residences get lower interest rates. So basically, they're saying the woman who helps decide America's interest rates gamed the system for herself. Perfect story, right? Except there's a problem. NBC News got their hands on Cook's actual bank documents. Turns out she listed the Georgia property as a vacation home, not a primary residence. The Washington Post verified it. The Financial Times verified it. Reuters found she never even applied for the primary residence tax exemption in Georgia. Think about it. If she was really committing fraud, wouldn't she have grabbed that tax break too? Her attorney, Abby Lowell, didn't mince words. This is an obvious smear campaign based on vague, unsubstantiated allegations. So why is Trump pushing this so hard? The answer is simple math. Fire one person, control the entire economy. Here's what most people don't realize. The Federal Reserve Board has 7 governors. Right now, only 2 of them are Trump appointees from his first term, Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller. Trump already got Stephen Miran confirmed in September. That's 3. If Cook goes, 4 out of 7. That's a majority. And here's why that matters. The Fed chair might be the face of the institution, but in a vote, he's just 1 voice out of 7. With 4 votes, Trump could push through whatever interest rate policy he wants. But it gets bigger. In February 2026, the board will vote on whether to reappoint the presidents of all 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. Control the board. Control those appointments. Control those appointments. Control the entire Federal Open Market Committee, the group that actually sets interest rates. Former Fed Vice Chair Lael Brainard called it what it is: an unprecedented attack on Fed independence and an aggressive attempt to seize control of the board's majority. Economists warn this could bring back 1970s-style stagflation, when politicians pressured the Fed to keep rates low, and we got a decade of crushing inflation. Trump's calculation is cold. Remove 1 person, and the keys to the American economy are his. But Lisa Cook wasn't his only target. How does a building renovation become a federal crime? January 11th, 예제시주의 sucks. Sunday night. Fed Chair Jerome Powell releases an extraordinary video statement. The Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas on Friday. They're threatening criminal indictment. The alleged crime? A building renovation. The Fed's headquarters, the Mariner Eccles building, was built in the 1930s. It's got asbestos, outdated electrical systems. It needed a complete overhaul. The cost went from $1.9 billion to $2.5 billion. Trump's allies claimed Powell lied to Congress about the expenses, but Powell fired back. This threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation. Those are pretexts. He drew a clear line. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about rates, not renovations. Even Republicans pushed back. Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, on the banking committee released a blistering statement. If there were any remaining doubt whether advisors within the Trump administration are actively pushing to end the independence of the Federal Reserve, there should now be none. Tillis announced he would block all Fed nominations until the investigation is resolved. A building project, that's the pretext they chose. But the real battle was heading somewhere else entirely. The most powerful central banker in the world sat in the audience. January 21st, 2026. The Supreme Court. In the gallery, an unusual spectator, Jerome Powell himself. The Fed chair almost never attends Supreme Court arguments, but there he was, sitting through nearly 2 hours of oral arguments about whether Trump could fire Lisa Cook. Next to him, former Fed chair Ben Bernanke, and Cook herself. Powell didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His presence was the message. We are not backing down. 10 days earlier, after announcing the criminal investigation, Powell had already declared his position. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. Here's the irony. Trump appointed Powell as Fed chair in 2018. But Powell stopped being Trump's guy the moment he refused to slash rates on command. Trump has publicly called him a numbskull, a moron, and a stubborn mule. Powell's term as chair ends in May 2026. But his term as a board governor runs until 2028. He's not required to resign. If Powell stays, that's another obstacle in Trump's path. And if Trump wins the Cook case, Powell could be next. All eyes turned to the 9 justices. The whole world was watching that marble courtroom. January 21st, 2026. Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court doesn't usually hold oral arguments for emergency cases, they just rule on the papers. But this time, they scheduled a full hearing. That's how big this was. The courtroom was packed. Wall Street analysts, central bankers from around the world, economists. Everyone wanted to see this. Solicitor General John Sauer stepped up for the Trump administration. Governor Cook's deception or gross negligence in financial transactions is cause for removal. The American people shouldn't have their interest rates set by someone who was, at best, grossly negligent in obtaining favorable rates for herself. 3 key questions were on the table. First, what does for cause actually mean? The Federal Reserve Act says the president can only remove governors for cause, but it never defines the term. Historically, it's meant serious misconduct or dereliction of duty, not policy disagreements. Second, can courts even review the president's decision? Sauer argued no. Not even the Supreme Court could second-guess Trump's call. Third, does Cook deserve a hearing before being fired? She learned about her termination from a Truth Social post. No notice, no chance to respond. Cook's attorney, Paul Clement, who served as Solicitor General under George W. Bush, put it simply, if there's no judicial review, it's all kind of a joke. The arguments lasted 2 hours, and what happened next shocked almost everyone. The justice Trump appointed said this could shatter the Fed. As the arguments unfolded, something unexpected happened. Trump's own Supreme Court appointees started tearing into his administration's position. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, Trump's second Supreme Court pick, confirmed after one of the most contentious hearings in modern history, didn't hold back. Your position that there's no judicial review, no process required, no remedy available, a very low bar for cause that the president alone determines, that would weaken, if not shatter, the independence of the Federal Reserve. He kept going. If this becomes precedent, what goes around comes around. Every president's appointees would likely be removed on January 20th of the next administration. We'd essentially have at-will removal. Kavanaugh warned that Trump's approach incentivizes presidents to dig up trivial or inconsequential or old allegations that are very difficult to disprove, a search and destroy approach. Find something, put it on paper. No judicial review, no process, nothing. You're done. The liberal justices piled on. Justice Sonia Sotomayor shared a personal story. I had to move from New York when I got my job in Washington. Frankly, I renovated my apartment the year before, thinking I'd be in New York for the rest of my life. Things change. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson cut to the chase. What is the evidence that has been presented and considered with respect to Ms. Cook's alleged misconduct? All 9 justices, liberals and conservatives alike, expressed doubts about the administration's position, and then the Chief Justice dropped a bombshell. The Chief Justice signaled to court won't punt. Justice Samuel Alito floated a compromise. Why not send us back to the lower courts to investigate the mortgage allegations further? It would have been the easy out. Let the case drag on for another year or two. Avoid the big constitutional questions. But Chief Justice John Roberts shut that down. Returning this to the lower courts seems pointless. Legal experts immediately understood what that meant. The Supreme Court isn't going to kick this can down the road. They're going to set a clear rule. Roberts also picked apart Sauer's logic. You began talking about deceit. Does that apply in the case of an inadvertent mistake contradicted by other documents in the record? That's the heart of it. Was Cook deliberately lying? Or did she make a paperwork error that other documents clearly correct? Those are 2 completely different things. And the documents Cook submitted show exactly that she listed the Atlanta property as a vacation home and second home on multiple forms. If the court rules that for cause requires actual serious misconduct and that Trump's allegations don't meet that standard, this won't just save Lisa Cook's job. It will set a precedent that protects every future Fed governor from politically motivated firings. For 112 years, Fed independence has been maintained by tradition. This ruling could finally give it the force of law. The decision is expected by early summer. Your mortgage, your car loan, your job. It all comes down to this. Interest rates aren't just numbers on a screen. They determine whether you can afford a house, whether businesses can expand and hire, whether your 401k grows or shrinks. When politicians control interest rates, they face an irresistible temptation. Cut rates before an election to juice the economy. Worry about inflation later. We've seen this movie before. In the 1970s, political pressure kept the Fed from raising rates when it should have. The result? A decade of stagflation, high inflation and high unemployment at the same time. It took years of painful rate hikes to fix. That's why every major democracy keeps its central bank independent. Congress sets the goals. The Fed chooses the tools. No president gets to call the shots on rates. 3 former Fed chairs, Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, and Janet Yellen, signed a joint statement. 5 former Treasury secretaries joined them. So did 593 economists and Nobel laureates. Their warning: this is how monetary policy is made in emerging markets, with weak institutions, with highly negative consequences for inflation and the functioning of their economies. After the Supreme Court arguments, the market rallied. The S&P 500 jumped over 1%. Investors read the room. The court is probably going to protect the Fed. Lisa Cook released a statement after the hearing. For as long as I serve at the Federal Reserve, I will uphold the principle of political independence in service to the American people. For 112 years, no president crossed this line. The Supreme Court is about to decide whether that tradition becomes permanent law or whether the independence that protects your wallet dies here. The world is watching Washington. That's the story of the Fed under fire. Trump's unprecedented attempt to take control of America's central bank, and the Supreme Court showdown that could decide the future of our economy. When the ruling comes down this summer, we'll break down exactly what it means for you. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this video helped you understand what's really at stake, drop a like. See you in the next one.